Okay, if you've got a notice that came up telling you that it's in progress, you need to say okay, so that you can be part of it, okay? Now, Carmel, you had some things you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was just wondering, SHEN would be beneficial for somebody who's recovering from a stroke. I've got a family member who's recovering from a stroke, making good progress.
You also
Um,
mentioned something about autism.
yeah. No, it's not the same person. It was just two totally different questions.
Are you working with someone with autism?
No, I'm not currently. No,
Okay.
no, no, just a general question. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, well, those are both pretty good questions, and
Mm.
they have actually but what we could do with well, first of all, let's just take autism.
Mm-hmm.
What would you imagine, any of you, would be where you would work or how you would work with somebody who is autistic?
I think the stress levels would be really high.
Mm.
Actually, I don't think that's the case. I never hear about autistic people being stressed. Anybody think about that
Really?
a bit?
They do tend to get stressed. I mean, if you put them in very different situations or their routines are different, they do get quite stressed, is my experience.
Mm. Mm.
I guess it depends on the person. They're all,
yeah,
autistic people I've met are all quite different, and some will let you touch them and some won't. And it's...
Well, it seems to me that of all the people that we work with, that the autistic person, more than anything else, needs work at the cough. They're not, they don't feel comfortable with with how they live. The way that people approach them is with an attitude that there's something not okay with them, and that so that in my opinion, the best approach with them, more than anything else, is to get their cough in as good a shape as you can. Now, I didn't when I was doing most of my work in SHEN. It was before there was so much attention being paid to autistic people, and they were either not talked about or shunted out of sight, and you never heard or saw people saying, well, my kid's an autistic kid and we love him to pieces and he's really great, we just have to work around him a little bit. But I had one child that was quite striking. I think he was really quite young. I'm trying to remember exactly how old he was. Maybe he was 4, but he was quite young. But anyway, so his parents wanted me to work with him, and at the time we're going to drift way outside of SHEN in a minute here, but I was dating a woman who I'd trained in SHEN, but she was a high psychic, and she saw things and sensed things and would meditate and get images, and so that we worked with this kid where she was in the room and went into a deep state just to see what images that she got. And now the thing that I noticed about the child, he was taking some kind of medication, which one of the side effects of was that he was growing a mustache and a facial hair. So it was a weird little kid with, you know, anyway, so he was, he didn't have much of an attitude towards me on the first time that I saw him. But anyway, so I did a Shen session on him, and I frankly can't remember exactly how I proceeded or what I did. But after it was all over, my girlfriend said that she had this image of a big explosion, things coming together, and a big explosion, and they all broke apart, and was sort of might seem that and she was saying when he came into this body, it didn't come in right. Now I can't make any further comment on that, but anyway, so we left, and I came back about a week later, and as soon as I got in the house, this little kid came rushing over to me and shook my hand. Now, it was clear to me that he had gained a great deal of confidence about himself and his place in things, or he wouldn't be doing something like that. Like I don't remember if I ever saw him again after that or not. I kind of think I might have, but I that was the thing that struck me more than anything else, that in doing the work with him, I established a connection with him that he felt good about, which he meant he had to feel good about himself in that relationship. I have worked with some people who had suffered strokes. Two different people had Bell's palsy, which is not exactly a stroke, but it's a same kind of a thing affecting the part of the face.
Right.
Now, one of them was in a Shen class that I was holding at a hospital in Milwaukee for the staff, and the person who had this happened to be an MD. And in the process of working with her and doing nothing more than trying to relax the tissue around that area, she began to tear, which she hadn't been able to do before. And after it was over, later she expressed that it was much improved, that her face was not as droopy, and that it was. The other one was my daughter, who I'd also trained in Shen, but I worked with her Bell's palsy with really no good effect at all. Now, as far as a stroke is concerned, one thing that overrides all of this is that people who have those kinds of conditions, or parents who have children who are that way, it doesn't matter how many times you tell them that Shen is not going to help their main condition, that you don't have. They want a miracle. They figure laying out of hands means that something miraculous is going to take place. And that overrides anything else that they might have about understanding of what could take place. And but what I found, like I worked with one fellow who had a bad stroke, and he had a lot of trouble afterwards, and the outcome of the Shen, it was kind of funny because he didn't think he got any good out of the Shen. Didn't help him. But what did happen that he didn't seem to appreciate was that he got okay with himself in the world, and he was starting to think about now how I'm going to move forward and how can I take care of myself, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, so that he has started living again, whereas before he was in a state of, oh, I can't do anything and I'm no good for anything and I'm can't live my life, and his whole attitude had shifted.
Mhm.
And there were others that I had worked with who were the same, had the same results, that their image of themselves and their future had shifted dramatically. Along that line, I've had a number of cancer patients. One or two, you could say that it might have contributed to their improvement in life, but most of them were along the lines of a woman. She was living out here in California. She'd moved out here from around Boston, I think it was. And she had cancer in both breasts and they were bleeding. Now that's pretty severe.
Mhm.
And she wanted me to fix that. And I think, and I didn't say I could fix it. I just said I'd be willing to work with her. And after about the third session, she called me up and said she was canceling the session. She had decided to go back to Boston and have the operations, which when she came to me, she was adamant that nobody was going to operate on her breasts. So she went through this through this basic personality change, got a hold of herself, and I'm going to do this that's appropriate, so that instead of wafting all over the place trying to get me to, or other people to do a cure that we couldn't possibly do,
Mhm.
she was going to do what was to grab a hold of what needed to be done and get it done.
Mhm.
And I considered that a success.
Mhm.
Those were the kind of people that I didn't talk to them the same way that I ordinarily would, where they were trying to be cooperative with their treatment. But I knew what I was very pleased with the outcome, because she did something that was sensible. And I certainly had a number of people along that line.
Mhm.
I did have another woman that came to me for cancer that she had in one breast. And I remember when I was working on her, sometimes, and especially back in those days, I would get vivid images when I was working with someone. Sometimes it would be an image of them as a small child, other times, other things. In this case, when I was working on her breast with my eyes closed, I saw this whirl of mud swirling and swirling and swirling and swirling and swirling and swirling. And then clearing. And I felt like, and she at the afterwards says, wow, that was really intense. I think you did something. Well, I kind of felt I did something too, but I couldn't be sure. But anyway, she picked herself up and moved down to live in Mexico. And I got a postcard from her about 6 years later that she was now going to go in for the operation, and that the doctors were telling her that they never knew anybody who had lived that long with that severe a condition. So I don't know if it was vanity or what, but I felt like I did something
Mm,
along that line.
mm, mm,
Well, when you look at the scale of things, everybody that you work with is going to benefit from Koth work.
mm,
And sometimes that's being strong in their Koth diminishes the irritations that they're getting from the outside world. Like it just doesn't bother them anymore.
mm,
One woman, there was a period when I was going to a hospital down in Texas. It was a hospital run by a religious a group of nuns that owned that hospital and some others. And so their boards are a little different about how they might approach things. But anyway, I was training. It was the best teaching situation I ever had because they were bringing in people from all over and within the system. And people started and the people in the hospital, staff in the hospital were beginning to hear what we were doing. And we had one day a psychiatrist came down from their psychiatric department to meet me, and he said, I want you to tell me about this stuff that you're doing because I'm wondering if it might help some of my patients. And he agreed to send me a couple of people to see if it might help their conditions. And he sent one woman down, and I didn't work with her right away. My star pupil, who was on the staff there, did work with her. And she was having auditory hallucinations, that these voices were in her head telling her what to do. And she'd follow their instructions. Well, the first day she was in the hospital, the voices didn't like her being in the hospital. And they told her to turn on the hot water and put her foot under it. She scalded her ankle severely. Now, if you can imagine holding your foot in there, you know, and so I think she had 3 or 4 SHEN sessions before I came back for another teaching stint, and so I met her, and I can't remember if I did work on her, but I can't remember if I worked on her before or after what she advised me. At one point I said, well, are you still hearing the voices? And she says, oh yeah, but I don't pay any attention to them anymore.
Hmm.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm willing to bet that some of you at one time or another have heard a voice, maybe in your head or seeming to come from somewhere. I know I have occasionally woke up in the middle of the night, heard this voice, and I know many people have. None of those people, and I include myself, would I ever consider to be a psychiatric patient.
Mm.
So it isn't so much what the diagnosis is, it's how do you live your life? And for this woman, I mean, pretty soon they dismissed her because there was nothing more. She was severely impacted by these voices, and she no longer was bothered by them. So apparently nobody particularly cared that she heard them and they didn't pay any attention to them. That's a big difference than when you're following, or when the patient is following what the voices say.
Mm.
Anybody else have anything they want to say about those situations or anything like that? Or
Mm.
just as a general thing, if you're working with quite ill people who obviously aren't physically able to get onto a cradle, so you'd be working with them in their beds, more or less, or on a settee or something. Would you work completely on the top, or would you lie them on something?
Wait a minute. I didn't quite follow. You're going to work
Oh, I
with
see.
them.
So no, I was just thinking. I know of a couple of people who I've thought SHEN might be quite beneficial to. So they've got quite advanced cancers, and they aren't physically able to get on a cradle at all. So would you just lie them down on a settee or their beds or something and work on top?
I've worked on all kinds of people who just lie down on a couch and I put my hands underneath them.
Yeah.
Or maybe I can get a pad of some sort underneath them.
And
but
that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I just didn't know what people
Yeah.
did generally. Yeah.
Initially,
Yeah.
we never had cradles in the beginning. We didn't for years.
Yeah, actually, I heard that. Yes. Yeah.
We had everybody went out and had foam pads made with a covering over them, and usually probably 4-inch thick pads, so that
Okay.
you could slide your pad, put that on them up on the bed or on the table, whatever.
Yeah.
I worked with all kinds of people that never got on a cradle.
Okay. Yeah.
Richard,
Yeah.
is there something around increasing the blood flow to a tumour that is maybe not helpful in situations?
I don't think I could give a general answer to that. Usually, well, I just don't think I can
Okay, yeah.
give you any. Maybe I mean we certainly increase blood flow, or at least improve lymphatic flow.
Yeah.
I have had numerous occasions where I would work with somebody, for example, might have a swollen knee, and I would do flows above the knee and below the knee, and that in less than 15 minutes you could see that the swelling was gone. It was greatly reduced. There was no question about that. It was visible and striking. One time I worked with a friend, acquaintance, that had was climbing a mountain somewhere and fell and broke his lower leg. And he was at home and propped up in bed, and and had his leg in a cast, and I climbed up I did flows around him, and I climbed up beside him, and I did flows through that leg. It was the right leg, so I did from the bottom of the foot up through the knee, into the thigh, and he went out. And that usually happens when you're reducing swelling. The person really will go into a deep state just quickly. Anyway, when he came out of the session, he said, "My God, I can move my leg inside the cast."
Yeah.
No question but what it reduced the swelling. Anybody got anything else?
Well, I thought I was told that we weren't to work with people with cancer because of the chance of spreading it. Like Joe was saying, the increases the flow, and therefore you might get metastases or secondaries as a result of it.
No, I don't think that
That's what Saranya told me. That was part of my training anyway. No, I've never worked with. Well, I mean, yeah, I've never worked with people with cancer.
circulation and improved circulation is always beneficial.
Mm.
And I don't see how it would affect any adversely affect any a cancer or anything like that, because when you're circulating blood, you're bringing in white blood cells to attack whatever's going on, and then carrying off the refuse in the lymph system. So,
I
well,
suppose a bit. I was just going to say, if people are kind of quite close to terminal, they've got nothing to lose, have they?
I worked with some terminal patients, and my experience was that they went into a very deep place and often had visions and
Mm,
whatever, but they were clearly on the way out.
mm. I worked with a young lad once who'd got a terminal diagnosis, and he went so deep. He said it was the first time that he'd been able to completely switch off from awareness of nurses, hospitals, ops, meds, and yes, he was very peaceful coming out of it. He still died, but mentally he was in a much better space.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, I've just got a quick question on just on flows. So when we do the spinal flows at the end,
yeah,
you know, from the root up,
yeah.
whichever centers we go into, when we get a flow coming through, do we need to wait till that flow's completed before we do the next one, or is it just okay to feel the flow? Say it's root to calf, and you're going to do two
Yeah,
there.
I wouldn't wait too long.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a few seconds, but not any great length of time.
Okay. So, but when we're working when we're working on the frontwards, we want to wait till the flow's finished, though, right? You wait till the flow comes, and then till it dies down, and then you move to the next one.
Yeah, that would be yeah.
Yeah. But when you're doing the spinal ones, it's okay, because sometimes I'm thinking, should I wait till this ends, or I've got sometimes it varies. It comes through as like shallow, and then the
Yes.
pulse changes, and then you think,
Yeah.
oh, that's a decent one. So once you get a decent flow, you can move to another place or the SP or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you've worked on people who are kind of end of life again with Parkinson's, and if you work on somebody like that, what you might do, just relaxation flows to help them feel more peaceful, or
Yeah, well, I've never actually worked with someone with Parkinson's, but SHEN is not a harmful. It's not like a medicine that if you take too much of it, it's going to hurt you or you have bad side effects. Again, I don't know what. I really can't comment about Parkinson's in particular.
What about Rosie? You had that end of life person. Where did you work when you worked with them?
Lot of cars. and gosh, it was some years ago now. Sort of a lot of relaxation to start with, that Kath, and solar plexus to Kath, quite a lot of that, because he was quite anxious about an op that was coming up. And I seem to remember that was the bulk of it, and sort of quite a lot around his throat as well, because he's I can't remember anymore. Yeah.
And also I've got someone with quite a lot of anger, like their whole life, and they're older now. And whenever I've worked like the SB, it seems to have got worse. So am I better to do SB into CAF or just avoid the SB? Because like there's just a lot there. I mean, I guess it all needs to come out, but it's sort of managing what she can manage. Like rage and anger. I mean, rage is root, right? I haven't even got into the root because there's so much going on other centres.
Well, I'm not quite clear on what you're asking there. You seem to have answered it for yourself, haven't you?
Well, it's just if someone's got anger, do we just keep working the SP till it's cleared, or would we do SP to CAF, or try or just work the CAF?
Well,
Charger.
there's times when you want to shift from solar plexus to the Koth, but I can't make a statement that would be the same for some general thing that I'd have to know what was going on specifically and what their responses were.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to share too much because this is
unusual. Sure, that's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, I can pick it up. I've recently had a session with Saranya when I was having to wind down my clients. So I wanted to get some advice about how I could make sure people were at the right stage. So I could always do that. Thanks. I'm sorry, my thing's about to run out of batteries.
All right. Well, I think we're about done for today. And unless anybody has anything last to say, why, I'll shut this thing down.
Just thanks for your time, Richard.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Before we go, we're definitely going ahead with this course in June, yeah? The one that we sent the flyer around, yeah?
Well, I'm not in charge of that. You have to talk to
Helena
about that. Yeah. I don't know how many people she has, and I'm certainly not in a position to.
Okay, I'll just email her about it and
sure. That'll be good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Cheerio. Bye.
Bye.
Mm.